Hello everyone, my name is Falala, and today I'm going to be talking about the testing ground changes that recently came to For Honor. And at first I wasn't going to make a video on this, but then I started reading and catching up on everything. And as it turns out, Ubisoft did they made a very huge change to the core of the game, and then didn't bother to explain it that well. So now we just have people uh, going off of their initial reaction, which has, in general, from what I've seen, been pretty poor, and then they just reject the rest of these changes as if they're all bad. And it's very annoying to see because these changes are actually very good overall. It's just people are not interpreting them correctly, or they don't understand something, or they're already frustrated with certain things in the game, and this seems to amplify them. So I'm going to be explaining the changes, what they are meant to do, how it's supposed to be implemented into a fighting game, some of the errors that were actually made in the testing ground that they haven't really come forward and said anything yet, that are getting passed around. So if you don't like them, or you're not sure about them, or you don't understand them, just try to get through this video. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, and I'm just going to go in order from like the things I've seen most complained about or talked about, and I'm just going to go down from there. So we're going to start with the damage reduction / buffs that have come to the characters. So if you are freaking out because your character does like 10 damage heavies or something like that, don't take it that seriously. They have made mistakes with these changes. There are attacks in the game that actually do 0 damage. So do not freak out. Not only is this a testing ground, it's not going in the live game, but they have made legitimate damage mistakes, and some that are so far-fetched that it could also be a mistake, such as Lawbringer getting his light parry punish back, or Aramush's blade blockade light doing 0 damage. So don't freak out. The intent of these changes are to make it goes hand in hand sort of with the attack speed increase, which I'll get into that in a sec. But okay, For Honor fighting is very slow because turtling is so powerful, but whenever offense is used, fights can go through very quickly because punishes are so punishing. You can survive maybe 1 or 2 max out of stamina punishes. They are extremely potent. They do so much damage, and they end fights extremely quickly. There are so many ganks in this game for 4v4 that can 100-0 you very quickly. There are just so many things like that end fights very quickly. So the idea is to reduce that. Now, the reason for duels is that, okay, you would only need to make a handful of reads to kill somebody, and a handful of reads typically is not enough to get a good grasp on what your opponent's going to do unless you fight them a lot outside of it. So you may have a friend who plays a character like Conk, and you have really good fights because you know how they play. But if you fight a random conqueror, you could get thrashed, or you could destroy them because you only need to make, a few reads. You dodge the bash, you get a guard break, stuff like that. And guard break punishes are very strong because heavy attacks do around 30, 40-ish damage. And then you chain from there, depending on your character. But the point of this is to reduce that. So now instead of making a handful of reads per round, you have to make a lot. So this means 2 things. It means 1, the fights are going to last longer so you can adapt and change to what your opponent does. This is amazing for a fighting game because then the fights are not so short and you actually have time to learn and show that you're truly skilled and kind of understand what's going on. And then the other thing is that it also kind of takes away turtling a bit, because if I throw heavies, if I go offensive, and I go out of stamina, I can lose 60 to 80 health depending on the character I'm fighting. That's half a health bar, even for most of the cast, and that's just an insane amount. So this would be a great way to counter that, because now you're not punished so much for actually attacking, which is what you should do in a fighting game. So to add on to this, for 4v4s, being ganked is not something you can necessarily help. You can really stall against it, and that's about it. But against a really coordinated team, you can still get 100 and 0'd very quickly. Maybe not even that, but honestly, your average player probably is not going to be able to come back if they only have a third of their health from, one gank setup. So the damage reductions in general are they would be very good if implemented correctly. Okay, and that is what Ubisoft is trying to do. So instead of rejecting them entirely because you don't like not being able to melt somebody's health bar in 3 hits, try to understand that it would actually separate really good players from average players, because the average player wouldn't just make three reads and get lucky. They'd have to make actual consistent reads to beat a good player. Another issue that kind of blends into the next topic with like reactability and the speed increases. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the stamina changes. Stamina changes were pretty well received, so I'm just going to kind of touch up on it. Stamina penalties on missing an attack or like whiffing, blocking or parrying are removed. So this is really good, because blocking, the only reward you should get for blocking an attack is that you don't take damage, because blocking is the least skillful thing to do in this game. It is the most basic concept that everyone knows how to do. There should be absolutely no reward for it other than you don't take full damage of the attack. That is that. Missing an attack, this doesn't really change too terribly much. But parrying is already incredibly strong, as you get to do a strong attack in return to making a read and parrying. So parrying also in a lot of cases doesn't just do damage to them, but it also allows you to chain. And now that chains are better, some chains are better with the speed increases, or pretty much the same really. It allows you to do damage, and then it allows you to combo and chain. So like, that is enough. You don't need to take a whole lot of stamina damage from getting parried, because then it just discourages you from attacking, because you don't want to go out of stamina, because out of stamina punishes are huge. And it would also mean that you wouldn't really attack unless you had a lot of stamina. Now it's going to be possible to throw these attacks even if you're low on stamina, so it's going to make fights more engaging and more interesting, because you won't just go out of stamina for getting parried for trying to be offensive. So again, it takes another cut at the turtle meta, which is great. Okay, so attack recoveries. All light attacks and all heavy finisher attacks have their recoveries on hit, normal block, and interrupt block normalized to 700 milliseconds. Okay, so it's standardizing attack recoveries. That's good. Standard attack recoveries is fine. It just takes inconsistencies out of the game, makes the game more stable. That is great. There are specific attack nerfs. So Orochi top light opener and zone attack, Shaolin's top light opener and Lawbringer's top light opener was slowed down to 500 milliseconds. Okay. Right, so the reason for doing this, I believe, because it doesn't truly say, it just says is to reduce the frustration associated with them. With the changes, these attacks aren't as necessary, because everything does less damage, so you don't need to poke and prod whenever they whiff an attack or something like that, or to interrupt attacks. I think that's fine, because it would actually be really, really strong to have a low damage, like, as far as everything else goes, to have an attack that's 400 milliseconds that does around the same damage as all these other attacks, from neutral. I think that's a good change. That is fine. So you don't have to worry about annoying poke attacks anymore on these few characters. Okay, so then zone attack, input, comfort. So if you've ever tried to throw zone attack and you threw that light, you got parried, you died, or you threw that heavy and you died, whatever. They have now made, or they say to have made zone attacks more easily accessible. They're easier to use. So again, that is a really good change. I haven't seen anyone talk about that at all, so I don't even know if anyone's even aware of this, but it's here. They added custom matches to testing grounds, so that's actually really cool because now we can actually test in testing grounds. I guess previously, if you really wanted to test, you just had to queue up with somebody at the same time and hope you get lucky. But custom matches is going to let a lot of these people that really invest time in testing all this stuff actually get through and test everything. And so that's awesome. And then feint believability. So feints, soft feints, and cancels should be more believable as they also follow the changes to visible attack speed. Okay, so if this works as intended, I would know. I have not got a chance to play these changes yet, but if this works as intended, it's going to, again, it's taking another chop at turtling because now feints and stuff like that are going to be harder to, I'm assuming, react to, and that is going to make offense so much more interesting. It's going to make the game a lot more fun because now, you know, it's just going to make the game a lot better because feints were pretty meh, like they weren't that great. There were some attacks in the game that could be delayed very well, like Lawbringer is side heavy, unblockable, is pretty good offense because you can delay it so much, but other attacks didn't really have this ability, so they weren't as good. But now hopefully this should make more attacks, especially unblockables, a lot better. And then here's our line of soft feints, should also do a lot better as well, so that's also just very nice in general. Checking to see if I have missed anything. Okay, well, I've covered the big points, which is really what I wanted to do. I just wanted to get this out there because, again, I feel like these changes, it's okay to make small changes or throw a character rework into testing ground, but if you're gonna change the core of your game, I feel like it really needs to be understood, and it was greatly misunderstood from what I've read. You know, I don't know. I wish I didn't have to make this video actually because it's kind of sad. I mean, I'm a small channel, and the fact that I have to, you know, I'm one of the few people that are just having to explain this instead of Ubisoft explaining this. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of sad, but if you see this video, if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. I'm going to be playing these changes pretty soon. If you could share this video around to anyone that you see not understanding, if you feel like I did a good job explaining, or if you feel like you need me to clarify something, just let me know. But yeah, really, I just want this to get around as much as possible, preferably. Hopefully other people will start speaking out about it too, because these changes are actually very good, and the backlash from this community is usually very, very harsh and very, very one-sided, not up for a lot of debate once things are set in concrete. So yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.